In this edition of Garden Talk with the Tulsa Master Gardeners, we talk about the 2 indoor spiders you need to be on the lookout for, an interesting shrub with beautiful flowers, and an eco-friendly way to deal with fallen leaves. Welcome to Garden Talk.
Here we are once again, episode number 5 of the Master Gardener podcast here in Tulsa. Here with Brian. How are you?
I'm real good. Number 5. That's crazy, isn't it?
Number 5,
yeah,
and we're still doing it. Do you guys like the new show open? We're always trying to do something a little different, a little fancier. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'd like to claim that, but I'm not going to claim it. So,
well, it's kind of fun, actually.
Yeah, it is. Good.
Weather. We got some new weather happening, don't we?
It's fall. It's Oklahoma. You know,
is it fall or is it winter? Which is it?
It's supposed to be fall.
It's supposed to be fall.
But we're getting into that, and the color for the trees wasn't very good this fall. We've been getting quite a few calls on that.
Like, what's wrong with my tree?
Why didn't they color? We just didn't see a lot of fall color, and sometimes you never know. And what I was talking to an arborist yesterday, and what probably happened on the color is, we went from pretty warm in September and October to, had a couple weeks of fall, right, and then went to kind of a cold snap. And we didn't have those moderate nights, the moderate cool nights that really took those colors into those leaves, and they went from basically green to maybe yellow to where they're at now is kind of brown. So
no transition period.
The color was a little disappointing this year, the fall foliage, but it is what it is.
What's the Master Gardener? Not the Master Gardener motto, but the Gardener motto, there's always next year.
There'll be next year. That's right. That's right.
All right, so this week, it is fall/winter. Gardening's kind of slowing down a little bit. But one of the things we get calls about here a lot at the Master Gardener office are spiders. People will call about spiders in their homes. So we're going to talk about spiders today.
Yeah, that's a good subject for a November talk. They're fairly easy. Spiders are good. A lot of people have
insects,
arachnophobia, and scared of insects and critters, and spiders there's no reason really to be scared of spiders. They're not aggressive. They're not going to come after you. Right. Luckily, we only have 2 in Oklahoma that we really need to be concerned about.
Right.
Everything else are good for that matter. They're not going to bite us. They're not going to kill us essentially at all. So spiders definitely have got a bad rap. You get these movies that put these vicious spiders with big dripping fangs and poison in their fangs, and they bite you, you're going to die. And it's not the case. It's going to be hard for some of you to convince that too, but it's true. My wife's one of them. If they see a bug or a spider, they're stomping on it, and it's not needed. It's not needed. But I think on this pest of the week, we're talking about a couple that we need to be concerned about.
The big 2 here in Oklahoma.
So we're going to identify those, and then the others that we don't have to worry about. This fall we've seen some garden orbs, some of them big yellow and green ones.
Those are awesome.
But you got a big pretty nest, and they're waiting on flies, waiting on other insects to land in that nest essentially. Then they'll go and spin it, and it's fun to throw a fly in that nest. They'll cocoon it out real quick, seal it up, and feed it later. And that's fun for the kids to keep them up there to watch them. And like I said, throw those dead spiders or dead insects in. They'll go over and catch them, and that's pretty neat for the kids. And anything we can put in the kids' mind to get them out that they're not a bad thing is good for us.
They're pretty cool. Well, the first one we need to be worrying about here in the homes is the brown recluse.
Brown recluse or fiddleback. Once you identify this guy, once you see it, they're all going to be shaped and colored the same. And then upon further, looking, you're going to be able to see the fiddle on its back. So it's going to have some sort of fiddle shape on its back.
Well, like on this, you can see right up there on that first section of its body. You can see that brown fiddle.
Yeah.
And a little closer up here, you can see it.
See it on the left, and all his crazy eyes. But no, that fiddle, that brown color is pretty common, and then that fiddle or that darker brown on the abdomen of that or thorax of that. So this is going to be a brown recluse. It's going to be about the size of a dime. Maybe a little bigger in some cases. They are reclusive, so they do not like to be around movement, around people. kind of don't like the light as well. So they're going to get in closets. They're going to get in back in, maybe in pantries. You really see them a lot in garage if you have a lot of boxes and things.
Right.
Where
back in the corner deck where nobody goes.
Hidden back there. So yeah, so that right there is going to tell you that they're not going to be aggressive. They're going to stay away. Where you'll get bit is if they get into your pants, you leave some pants on the floor, a shirt on the floor, and they're trying to find somewhere out of the way, and they find their way in that.
Right.
A shoe, a boot. So if you're seeing a bunch of spiders, doesn't have to be a recluse, in your home, then kind of, take an extra step, shake those shirts out. If you're like me, my shirts are on the ground. I don't ever get them hung up.
Don't be like him.
Don't be like me. But at least shake them out if you're
Right.
seeing a lot of spiders and that sort of thing. That'll get them out of there and go on. They're more apt to bite you if you put your shirt on and you hold them against the skin or somewhere like that.
Right.
You can pick these guys up and move them outside. They're not going to just bite you. They're not telling you to do that, but you can take a piece of paper and simply move them outside or put them in the toilet and flush them or down the drain or something like that.
Right.
But this is the brown recluse that we've got to worry about.
Well, you mentioned the garage. I've got my shoes that I mow the yard in. They stay in the garage, and every time I go out to put my shoes on, I bang them
Kinda
together
bang 'em
and
and-
shake them out just for that
Well,
reason.
whether it's a spider or a beetle or anything that just crawled in there, and you don't want to kill it, so you're gonna get it out of your shoe and
right.
move it out.
Right.
But yeah.
So be aware, be cautious. And there's a spider. We get people they'll send us pictures of this and say, "Is this a brown recluse?"
Yeah.
Well, no. It looks similar, but this is a little bit hairier, totally different markings. It is that brown.
That brown.
But it doesn't have that fiddle on it.
Yeah, it's not the markings are definitely different. Maybe same size. There's a lot of different wolf spiders and a lot of other spiders that may look similar in size,
Right.
but that creamy brown color is and it doesn't have the hairs like the wolf spider
Right.
that's pictured does. So clearly differences. You may not be able to see it from 5 feet away, but once you get closer, you can notice pretty well. So it works. Lots of different misidentifications, but once you're able to identify the brown recluse, see those shapes, see those colors, it'll be a lot easier for you to identify.
Well, and if your ultimate goal is to keep insects out of your house, these guys are out there eating those insects.
They're out feeding,
They're eating those insects.
yeah, they're out feeding. So they're going to be wanting to move in and out, and again, they'll kind of go on a pattern. You'll see a couple, a month that you'll see more spiders than you normally do. September, October, November is that time when those insects are kind of moving from the outside in. So we'll start seeing a lot more movement. And when that's the case, just kind of pay a little more attention. If you got little kids, just kind of knock their shoes out a little bit and go on. Don't worry about it. So
well, and probably teach the little kids that if they see a spider, come get mom
Yeah.
or dad or the grown-up in the house to come in and take care of it, not for them to go down and
that's
take
right.
care of it.
That's right. So the brown recluse we're going to see inside, and I think the next spider we have the second
This guy.
spider. Yeah, this is a black widow.
Right.
And black widows, we see a little bit in the house, but we see more of those out in leaf debris, litter outside, maybe around in your pinyon wood where you're, when in the firewood out by the back porch. They're going to try to they're going to get underneath the bark and crevices, leaves, mulch, things like this. So this other one, this is the second one. Like I've said, this is a black widow.
Right.
And it's going to be black on the top. This is from the top looking down. And then I think if we go to the next one, we'll see an hourglass. And this is a good idea.
On the belly.
On the belly.
Which is the downside because you can't ID it for sure.
Can't always. You can go and pick it up and turn it over.
Do not do that.
Do not do that. It's not. Again, it's not aggressive. It's just like the recluse. It's not going to be aggressive.
Right.
But if you flip it over or kick it over and see a red dot or a red hourglass,
Right.
that's a telltale sign of us saying that's another one of 2 poisonous spiders in Oklahoma.
Right.
So that causes a couple different symptoms. The black widow or this one that's showing, she's going to be a neurological sting. So that sting or that venom's going to get inside our blood and it's going to be more of a systemic inside our system and show the bites that way, versus the
brown
fiddleback. It's going to be a necrosis, so it's going to bite, and then it may or may not show a skin deteriorating bite, where it's going to have just right around that bite, it's going to kind of kill the skin that way. So again, they're not going to kill us, but we may get infected from that bite. And we're not physicians or doctors and don't claim to be, but if you do notice a area that you may have thought you had a bite, that's the skin's kind of dying around it, then that's the first sign to go ahead and get to your doctor and see if they can identify it as a bite or just a skin issue that you're having besides an insect. Right. So the fiddleback is necrosis around the bite. The black widow is you're going to be kind of achy. You're not going to feel good. You're not going to necessarily have symptoms by the bite. It's going to be around other symptoms other than where that bite is, if you will.
Bottom line, if you've got a bite or you think you got a bite, best to go to the
doctor. And even better, if you think you got bit, whether it's by a mosquito, by a tick, or by a spider, save that insect, save that spider. Put it in a pill bottle, put it in a Ziploc bag, label it at the date, put it in the freezer for later. And that way, a month later, 2 months later, you can come back and actually do a test on that insect if you're showing symptoms. Right. So, don't get too bogged down on that, because they're not gonna do a lot of damage to us. But just be aware of the two spiders that we have that are poisonous in Oklahoma. But I also want to talk about scorpions.
Right.
Scorpions are another thing that we will start seeing more and more as winter comes on, when we're changing from fall to winter. They're coming from the outside in, little bitty house scorpions that we see in Oklahoma. They're not poisonous, but their sting sure does hurt. I would compare their sting to a yellow jacket or something. It's pretty intense for a while. And to a child, getting bit by a scorpion, it's pretty painful for them. It's not poisonous, but painful. So just be aware of that. There's graphics that we've seen on there. We'll show those, but they're not much bigger than an inch and a half in size. All right. And again, if you got boots outside, your garden boots, just knock them out. Try to rough them out. They're not aggressive either. They usually will bite you when they get trapped inside clothing or inside boots they're trying to get out. So they're going to do their best, kind of like these other spiders, to get out. So that's when we're going to get bit. So simply shake it off. If we're seeing more insects inside the house, be aware that we're going to see more likely see more spiders and scorpions. So just be aware is my advice for those.
Any major control recommendations on those guys?
Not really. If we start seeing more indoor pests than we like to as a nuisance, we can try to get some spray, some house spray, indoor house spray on our own from our box stores, from our garden centers. Right. Spray around the baseboards, spray around where they're gonna be. As they walk through that invisible spray, they'll pick up some of that chemical and die that way. If it gets bad enough, hire a professional. If you've got a termite person or another pest control company that you use, give them a call and see if it's justified that they spray. It will slow them down a little bit, and then if they become too big of a nuisance, probably wouldn't be a bad idea to spray something to help slow them down a little bit.
I know in my house we've seen a brown recluse, but I don't know, in the house we've been in now, we've been there like 14 years, maybe twice.
Yeah.
We've never seen them in that whole time.
Yeah, so and you're sealed up pretty good, maybe more in the garage that you're just not noticing, and we're in the garden shed. But it's one of those, I've said this 4 or 5 times, that when we start seeing insects more inside the house, just be aware, and if it gets to be much of a nuisance, you may have to call somebody or try to spray yourself, see if that slows them down. But nothing earth-shattering, nothing that's really going to harm us, just be aware. Yep.
There you go.
Yep, there's my ideas on spiders.
Spiders 101.
And scorpions. Yeah.
Well, all right. This week our plant of the week we've been talking about it's fall. It's time to plant trees and shrubs. So we're going to feature another shrub. This one's called Sweetspire.
This is a good one.
This is a good one. It's really unique. I love those flowers that it puts out, once a year, May, June, something like that.
Yeah. No, it's a good one. They've got a couple different sizes of these. They've got little Henry, I think, is a small one. It'll stay, knee high, waist high, and then the standard that'll get 4 or 5 feet tall on that. Great thing about this plant is it'll handle it'll handle wet conditions. That's the first thing that comes to mind when we mention this.
Wet or dry.
Wet or dry.
Right.
But, it'll handle those conditions, and it'll thrive in those. So,
sun does best in the sun if you got 4 to 6 hours a day, but it also kind of does pretty well in the shade.
It'll handle all right. You won't get this many flowers in the shade, but it'll do fine. It'll still flower at that time.
And it doesn't grow very fast. And one thing it does bloom on the old wood. So if you get one of these, you want to trim it, don't trim it in the fall. Wait till after it blooms.
So prune it after it flowers. So May, June time frame, July will be a good time. Then it can regrow those limbs for the flowers for next year. But Sweetspire is a good one that it's just a good standard one that is gonna not gonna give you much problems and pretty low maintenance. It's not going to take a lot of low maintenance, and it'll take a pruning if it gets too big. So good plant. Nurseries should have it. Various sizes. Go check it out.
Well, it's a good plant for just a single isolated, but if you wanted to kind of across the front of your house, a row of them like a hedge or something, you can plant those, and they get all big and bushy. I mean, this is kind of a hedge here.
Yeah,
that's more than one plant. So,
it is kind of a hedge, and after it flowers, if it's got too big, go in and shear it. I mean, it'll take a shear and really, really well, and it'll look kind of bad after the shear, but it'll fill in and look good all fall, and then come back again in the winter. So good plant.
So Sweetspire, and I love the name of the smaller one, Little Henry.
Little Henry
Sweetspire. Got a few Little Henrys out in our yard.
Sweetspire, but no, good plant. Give it a try. Give it a try.
All right, right now. In our yard, we're about the time leaves are starting to come down. So as far as what to do in your yard right now, we're talking about leaves. The thing is, don't do this. Do not bag up those leaves and either let them haul them off to the dumps or the trash site that we have here in Tulsa.
Yeah, I mean, their leaves are down right now. I mean, they're still falling, but for the most part, they're on the ground, and usually we can get in and mulch them. That's free mulch. It's free fertilizer. That's free added nutrients to our soil that we don't want to necessarily ship off. And if we get too big of a pile, if we can't get them all mulched in and it hides the leaves of the fescue, then we can go ahead and get those off, put them in a bag, and move them to the backyard. But mulch them in. I think this was your yard.
This is my yard. We've got probably 40 to 50 of these big oak trees, and we get a lot of leaves.
Yeah.
When we first moved into our house, I bagged them all up, and mulched bagged leaves, we had 120 bags. That's a lot of bags. That's like every weekend all season long.
That's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Until going through this program and Dr. Zhang, the soil scientist from OSU, talking about just mulch them in, and I was like, well, that'd be a lot easier, wouldn't it? So anyway, in this picture here, I let them kind of get ahead of myself last year, but this is just one pass with the lawnmower. You still see some leaves, but if I make another pass on that, they'll be gone. They'll be invisible. They'll be mulched up. They'll be down in the sand in the ground.
Yeah.
It's going to give more organic matter back to your soil. And as Dr. Zhang said, manure and leaves has the same amount of nitrogen, and 1% nitrogen, which is kind of hard to.
Yeah, you think manure, you think it has a lot of nitrogen in it, and it has a little, but leaves have just as much too. So
it's kind of free fertilizer falling from the sky that you can mow into your
yard. And it's good slow release fertilizer that it won't necessarily be available this first month, but it'll be available throughout the winter. And as spring starts breaking things down more, it's going to release a lot more, and not just nitrogen. I think where our leaves. Our positives on the leaves is our micronutrients and all those other smaller nutrients that we have out there. It's not just nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, but it's others out there that as it breaks down, it's going to release those in a form. But it is a good thing. We talked about fescue in a few episodes earlier, but it's not good for the fescue. The fescue won't do very good when it has leaf cover, when it's covered in leaves. So you may have to get in there every other week, go in and mulch that down, knock it down, get those leaves exposed. That's going to break down. That's going to cut it's also going to cut the fescue as well. So that's going to add our greens to our browns with our compost. So we're going to have a kind of a mini compost area out there, and then as the winter goes on and spring picks up, it's going to really release them pretty quick and pretty good. So my suggestion on this, and Tom, you've done it at your yard, is maybe around our sidewalks and in our flower beds where a lot of the leaves blow. They blow in the wintertime. So blow those out before. Mulch it in with that mulching mower, put it back in, and then you should be good to go. But
well, it's changed my life. Another thing that's changed my life on these leaves is I bought one of these little mulchers, portable mulchers. You pick up the leaves and drop them down in there. So I'll get the leaves off of the driveway or the patio or something out there, run them through there. I'll get 15 or 20 bags of mulched leaves, store that in the corner of the yard for the winter, and then come spring when I'm getting my garden going, I've got my mulch.
Everything's ready
to go. I just got to go back in the wheelbarrow and bring it over and dump it out, and it's pretty pretty nice.
It works good. It really does, and you don't have to haul those off, and we like trees, and that's what happens in the wintertime. It's the downside to trees, but the upside is we can use them. That's what nature does. The leaves fall on the ground, and we kind of recycle back through. So you're an example of you have a full covered forest in your backyard. 50 trees in the backyard and front yard, so there is a lot of leaves. So why pay somebody to get those leaves off? Run them with the mower a time or two throughout November, December. Then you're good to go. So save you about 300 or 400 to get have somebody come in and blow them out and gather them. You added your grass nutrients to that. So if you can, mulch them in. It's a better thing to do.
And I would much rather run the mower over a few times than put them in a pile and bend over and bag them up and carry them to the curb.
That's right. That's exactly right. And later on, if you've got them in a bag back in the backyard, hey, you can use those for mulch, use those for soil additives, and good to go, ready to go. Yep.
Right. Good tip.
It is.
All right, let's move on to our questions of the week this week. Got some interesting questions, timely questions. First question comes from Don. Don says, I have elephant ears in my garden. Do I need to dig them up and bring them in? Well, elephant ears, those great big beautiful plants like this. So what do you say? Does he need to dig them up and bring them in?
I'm too lazy to dig them up. I can buy a new ear. I can buy a new bulb in the spring for about $5. That's for a big one. So I'm not going to dig mine up. I'm going to leave mine in the ground, and what I'll do, they've frosted by now, so everything's froze. So they're starting to break down. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go in and take my big sawzall, cut that off, kind of level to the ground, not quite level, but a couple inches above the ground. Cut that off, move that out. That's a lot of juicy limbs, a lot of water there. But you get that out, move that over, let it dry out a little bit, and then I'm throwing a bag of mulch over the top of it and going on. Is what I'm doing. But if you've got a unique elephant ear that you maybe paid a lot of money for, and you don't want the chance of it to freeze out, do the same thing. But then in a few weeks after you cut it back and it's kind of dried, pop it up out of the ground, and then you can go store it if you need to.
So I guess, as I understand it, we're kind of on the borderline of their winter hardiness. A little bit farther south, you don't have to do it at all. A little farther north, you need to pull them up out of the ground. So it really depends on our winter. If we have one of those freezing cold, -10, so winters, if they're not really mulched well, they would be.
They can freeze back, and I think I have two of them in my yard. I have one on my top flower bed and one on my bottom flower bed, and I only had one bag of mulch, so I threw it over last winter, and it survived. And then the other one that I didn't cover up, I had a little bitty sprout come up, but it didn't survive the winter 2 years ago. So, but in that case, if I'd have covered that one up down below, I'd have probably survived. But the other one did fine, and I'll probably do the same thing this year. I haven't had a chance to cut it back yet. It has froze. But again, if it freezes, so be it. I'll put a new one in and go on.
Personal choice there.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
You can roll the dice, or you can go, I don't want to do all that work for
Yeah. So yeah, just get it off there, let it dry out, and then put mulch over it or dig it up if you want. So we are at that point. Anything below about 5 to 10 degrees, anything below that, we are going to run the risk to start freezing things out. So just be aware.
All right. Next question comes from Betty. She says, some of the needles on my pine tree are starting to turn brown and dropping to the ground. Is this normal? Well, there's a photo of this. And that's the question: is this normal needle browning, or is this something else?
So pine trees, we're kind of going into the transition. They're evergreens, so they're gonna have needles on throughout the winter. This particular one, I would say, is going to be natural needle drop. We usually get that this time of year, on up into the winter time. Late winter, we'll start seeing more and more of this. But if the needles are turning brown from the inside out, then more than likely that's natural needle drop. Pines will have a 3-year cycle where they'll grow needles for 3 years and then shed that 4th year. Or a 5-year needle. So just depends on what pine you have. But in general, if we're seeing just regular browning from the inside out, that's more than likely natural needle drop. But we have a couple other diseases normally that we'll see in springtime, where we'll see some bandings around the needles, or tips that are browning, or possibly limbs that are browning. But those are issues, other than natural needle drop that we're seeing. Don't see a lot of that this time of year, but normally it's this that we're seeing. But on the other hand, if we're seeing a tree that goes from somewhat normal color to brown or to yellow this time of year pretty quickly, then that indicates something else. That indicates a pinewood nematode. So it's a nematode that's spread by an insect from pine tree to pine tree. And that nematode gets in there from the feeding of that insect. Pine sawyer beetle is what's spreading those. But he or she will go feed on an infected nematode pine and then take it and feed on a non-infected and spread that nematode in its mouth. That nematode will get inside that tree. It'll, depending on the time of year, how healthy that tree is, it could get in there and just take it over and just shut that tree down in a matter of a month. So if you go from green to brown or yellow in a month, you've got pine, and that's affecting the whole tree. You've got a nematode in that tree. And that tree probably needs to be taken out. But if it just looks like this, where you have green on the outside, some brown on the inside, it's natural needle drop is what that is.
So this is normal, but if it starts to spread out to the tips, then
we've got
a bigger problem.
Then we've got some issues. If they on the answer if they question that, that it's kind of more than just the inside, there could be a few other items looking. Well, the first thing I tell them to do is look for oozing of the trunk, look for leaking of the trunk. So, were there damage to that trunk, whether it's lightning, whether it's woodpecker, whether it's borers, or it could be cankers that have got in. And if you're seeing oozing or leaking or abnormalities of that trunk or limb, then we also may have a problem also in addition to what we're seeing. So cankers, woodpeckers are getting in, could be getting involved, and then borers get into the pines as well. So just kind of be aware, see if we need to dig a little further than just, inside natural needle drop. And if we're not, we're good. If not, give us a call, send some pictures in. We can kind of walk you through the other plethora of problems that pine trees have in
it's a good word, plethora. Plethora of pine problems.
A lot of pine problems. But there are. Pines, it seems like, they either do good or they don't do good. They just die totally. So we try to bring in some of these exotic pines, and they have some other issues that we've got to deal with. But for the most part, that's a 10-minute answer for natural needle drop on that question.
All right. Well, that's what we got this week. Like you said, if you have questions, you can email us pictures. We'll bounce the information up here at the end. But again, thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time.
You bet. Keep those questions coming, because two of these came last week. So it's kind of a fun thing. So keep them coming. If you got anything, send us an email. We'll get them, and if it's worthy, we'll put it on here. But no,
and you'll get a Master Gardener Garden Talk T-shirt. Oh, we don't have those. Sorry.
Not yet. We're waiting on sponsors for that, but it will. If you do have questions, though, send them to us, and we'll get them answered, either whether it's on the air or at our time. So, yep.
All right. See you next time.